Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons episode. And today we're going to be talking about the treatment of Scamacca, especially after this weekend when we drew at Villa, and just the complete humiliation in what Moyes kind of portrayed Scamacca with. We're just going to dissect that kind of stuff, Moyes' quotes after the game. And yeah, Mike, what did you kind of think of it? Because right towards the end of the match, we see this. We see Scamacca stripped and ready to go. You know, for about 5 minutes, he was waiting to come on. And then he just didn't appear. And we brought on Cornet up front instead.
Yep.
And Scamacca just did not come on the pitch, even though he was stripped and ready for about, a good 5 minutes. So what happened there?
So where I sit in the stadium, I can see the bench very clearly. I sit directly, almost opposite to it. So I can see when players are coming on, and I often glance over to see. So yeah, I can see he's there for a while. So we already had Cornet on. He was stripped, ready, started to approach the sideline, and they was about to get ready to name his number and all of that stuff. And then Ben Rama plays that ball that puts in Cornet. Cornet's massively offside. He misses it. After that, he sits him down. So basically, he saw one opportunity or one chance where, and at the time, I actually was for Moyes with that sub, because I actually was saying on the side that we need, if he brings on Scamacca, then you probably need to bring on Pace to then run in behind.
Yeah.
But if you bring on Cornet, it allows us to continually put it over the top and to try and exploit them in that way, or try and play past their high line. So I understood the sub when he brought on Cornet. I know some people don't. Some people criticize. I don't think the criticism of that sub is right, because I think Moyes was actually right in that. But the subsequent treatment of it, or the subsequent way in which he managed the game, and in particular how he then managed Scamacca, I think it was distasteful.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing, isn't it, really? If you're, what you mentioned there of Cornet, I agree with. I think the way that Villa were playing that high line and our threat was getting in behind, it made sense to bring on a pacey option for Danny Ings if that's what he wanted to do. But don't strip Scamacca ready if you're not planning on, having that as your initial reaction with Cornet, because it made no sense to do that. So Cornet was then brought on, and, Scamacca was left lurking. What was the point of it? What was he going to do that he suddenly thought, oh, actually, I don't want to, after seeing about 3 minutes of Cornet on the pitch? Like, surely you would know going into the match what you want to do. Like, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense, we'll go into it in a bit, but the quotes from Moyes then just makes it even more baffling as to his decision making. He clearly thought, I need to bring on Scamacca because I need a goal, and they maybe need to link play a bit better and hold possession. And then we made one pass. And it's what I've constantly said throughout the season. In Moyes' mind, football isn't about patterns. It's not about possession. It's about moments. And if he sees something that essentially perpetuates or punctuates his idea on what a moment can come from, or what a moment can be, he will continue and persist with it until it's no longer viable and he has to swap it out. So his idea was we play past that high line. That's why he brought on Cornet. The one moment he saw it work, that put the exclamation point on, that decision is 100% categorically, emphatically correct. We will now break them down again and we'll get another opportunity. We didn't really. The ball kept coming back. We couldn't hold it up. We couldn't link the play. And it seems like, because we're playing okay, and we'll do our review later today, which will probably be up tomorrow, and we'll go into more detail. But because something worked, he then will not remove the personnel or try to change it up. And it just leads to staleness. And I felt for Scamacca because he's not had much runs. He's come back from an injury. And then you feel like you're maybe about to come on, and maybe, you're thinking you might get a chance, and then you're told to sit down and you're just left there in your kit. And it's just a humiliation, really, in front of all the fans, all the crowd. And then to add insult to injury, Moyes comes out of his comments, which in part, again, I will caveat that and say partly I agree with some elements of what he said, and that's around the substitute of why I brought on Maxi first.
Well, let's get into what Moyes said, because we do have the full transcript for us to see here. So this was after the game, and Moyes said, we know that his physical data in reference to Scamacca has got to be much better than it is. The thought was Maxi, obviously Cornet, could get in behind them. We saw Maxi doing that more than Gianluca. Gianluca has got to get himself back. No manager wants to put out a bad team. You want to put out the players who are going to win for you. So you're always looking to put your best team out. I think his application is there. We just want the output to be bigger and more. That's one of the things we are looking for more. The general part of his play, his hold-up play, we like him for it. We've not seen it as much in the work we've been doing. So basically there, he's saying what we've said in terms of he thought Cornet was better suited for this match to try and win him the game, which is fair enough. But it's the manner in way you manage players. The man management side of it is equally as important. You know, when you're stripping someone ready to come on like that, especially someone that we've brought in for a big fee, his first season in the Premier League, you know, a lot of expectation around him, and he hasn't played much recently as well because of injuries and other things. Do not do that to a player. You know, how is that going to affect his confidence if he does then start him in the next match? Like, how is that ever going to, you know, benefit a player if they're, you know, firstly, only getting 5 minutes if, you know, when the sub was there to be made with 25 minutes left to go, and B, just changing your mind over one slight moment in a match. It's crazy to me. But what did you think of those quotes from Moyes?
One, it sounds a bit at odds to it with itself, right? So let's kind of break it down. So they know about the physical data, and they feel it needs to be much better, and Gianluca needs to get himself back. So what you would say there is that he's commenting on that maybe he's not running enough, he's not putting in the hard enough yards in which to support Moyes' method up front. So maybe that's one element. That you can say, fair enough, you want a player to work harder. Also maybe represents a bit of a misunderstanding of that player. And you're trying to force something on the player that isn't something that's inherent to them. So you maybe have to actually have a bit more patience with them to get them to that point. Also, if you're talking about them physically, you may be on about fitness as well. They're maybe not at the right fitness levels. Again, there's only so much that can be done in training. You have to give a player a chance to play. And, you know, he's not getting minutes, or if he does get minutes, it's nominal, to say the least. So again, it's difficult to then say, well, he's not putting in that work. What's confusing is then that he basically talks him down from this physical point. And I can only assume that physical data he's referring to is around essentially putting himself about, right? Maybe in terms of how maybe he's doing in duels and so on. But what he can't critique him on, and what he's also saying, is that he's very good technically. He links play for us. He does well when he links play, but we haven't been able to get him to do very much of that. Now, that is also slightly an admission, and I don't think he's acknowledged it. It's a subconscious admission that we're not doing enough in which to get anything out of our centre forwards. Unless it's Mikel Antonio, who we can play kick chase football with and just twat it into his feet and hope he holds it and maybe turns a defender.
Yeah,
we don't offer much or include our centre forwards in anything. You know, we'll go into, you know, Ings, for instance, I think had 18 touches and 4 passes in his whole 70 odd minutes on the pitch. Now, he was very honest in terms of his application and keeping those defenders honest with his movement and so on. But again, it's a very telling thing that you are marking down a player for what he does physically, talking up what he does from a link point of view, and yet we played a game, or we play a methodology that doesn't support utilising a centre forward to link play.
Yeah,
it's incredibly insane.
To me, it was just kind of like, okay, you've decided not to bring Scamacca on after getting him ready for the last 5 minutes. Why would you then come out in your post-match interview and say there's things that he needs to do better, etc., etc.? Surely that just makes no logical sense, because you were planning on bringing him on anyway. And how is he then going to prove your doubts wrong by not even getting on the pitch in the first place? So I don't understand the logic what Moyes is trying to say. I get the point around Cornet being maybe a better suit for that match, which is fair enough. I think most people would probably agree in that situation. Getting him behind Villa at the weekend was the best way to go about it. And it was where we looked most dangerous. But with 5 minutes to go, you bring on Scamacca. You know, Cornet can play out wide. Bowen was probably knackered by that point. Put Cornet out wide. Put Scamacca up front for Ings, because Ings isn't exactly rapid. You know, Scamacca's probably better at most things than Danny Ings is. And then, you know, he hasn't got the blistering pace of say, someone like Cornet. So It just seems strange, and it just seems like, again, we're seeing something from Moyes and his treatment of certain players, which is not okay. And we've seen it before in clubs that he's been at before. Look at Sunderland. There were a few players there that just got completely mismanaged, and that man management side of Moyes' game has to be better. The likes of Fornals, the likes of Lanzini, the likes of even Benrahma. The treatment of those players has been wrong, and Scamacca has fallen into that category. And to be honest, I don't think any West Ham fan would be surprised if Scamacca leaves this summer. Not one person would be surprised, because he just hasn't been treated well enough. He's been blamed for things that are probably out of his control. Like you mentioned, there's probably an element of Moyes not accepting that some of the criticism that he's trying to portray on Scamacca comes from himself and the way we play. You put Scamacca in our system for 90% of matches, it's going to look the same, because he's not that type of striker, and we're not playing to his strengths. So to me, it just makes no sense. And I think what he did at the weekend was disgusting.
And you could have put Scamacca in for Ings, because if you think of what Ings brought from a perspective of in play, if Scamacca's not putting himself about as much, it wouldn't have made any difference if it was Ings or Scamacca. I don't think Ings' pressing was particularly good either in the game, to be perfectly honest. He was honest and kept running, but running's running, right?
Yeah, it wasn't.
Without, as we mentioned in the last thing, it's all very well running around like a blue-ass fly, but if you aren't actually making the right presses or people coming with you, it's kind of all irrelevant. And what really got me in the comment is there's two bits that Moyes says, right? No manager wants to put out a bad team. You want to put out the players you think are going to win for you, so you're always going to put out your best team out. He's effectively said, you're not part of my best team. I don't think you can win if I've got you in my team. He then goes on to also say, I think his application is good. So, people then said, well, is it because he's not got the right dedication? And then you're going, oh, no, his dedication's good, but he's not good enough to go out and try and win you a game. He's a £35 million striker that you invested in to make him essentially your number 2 target behind Brozier. And you're saying that, yeah, he's got really good application, good technically, links play. I like all of that. I want him to be more involved, essentially is what he's saying. I want him to do more physically, whatever that physically encapsulates, as well as the other thing you're saying, we want him to do more. What more do you want him to do? Do you want him to link play more? Do you want him to be more involved in overall play? Do you want him to be in the box more? Do you want him to score more? It's so vague and ambiguous that it just leads people to make assumptions and to start to then go, wow, Scamacca's terrible. It's the same things that were said about Haller, but there's no definitive things as to these are the things that we need to improve. If he improves these, he will be back in the team. I'm seeing signs on certain areas, but there's certain things that I want more of. Yeah, and he's not really saying that. And it just seems awkward that you're turning around to a player that you've clearly brought in and said is going to be your star man. 6 months down the line, you're telling him, I don't think I can win with you in the team effectively based on what that comment. Now, I'm maybe taking it out of context, but I'm reading it in the black and white way it sounds. It sounds like you're saying that not part of my best team, and I don't think if you're on the pitch, I win with you.
Yeah, I think that part of the comment was probably in relation to the actual game itself at the weekend. But overall, I think just the main issue I've got with this, like, if you don't think Scamacca's the fit for that sort of game, don't get him stripped and ready to play. Mm-hmm. Don't get him stripped, because for 85 minutes, the game plan was the same. Aston Villa play a high line. We try and get him behind. What changed in that couple of minutes that thought, actually, now we're just going to leave you off and leave you stripped down? It makes no sense. That is the part I have the biggest problem with, because you can't do that to a player. It just absolutely shatters their confidence, and he's just going to lose respect for him and not want to play for him. And, again, as I mentioned, I would not be surprised in the summer if he leaves, but I just think it was just disgraceful how he's treated him this weekend. And I really wouldn't be surprised if Scamacca leaves, because he deserves a lot more than what we're giving him at the moment. And yes, he needs to do better himself, and he has to do better in terms of his, ability on the pitch. But there are so many factors that come into that. And we've mentioned it before in terms of the style of play, in terms of actually getting minutes, in terms of playing the right personnel around him, loads of different factors. But yeah, we're going to leave that there anyway, because it's kind of a bigger topic. But overall, just the treatment of Scamacca is not good enough for Moyes, and he's treading a very thin line in terms of losing him as a player right now, because we've got a big couple of months, and Scamacca could be a huge part in whether we stay up or not. So I think he's playing a very, 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 very dangerous game with him by doing what he did on the weekend. But
I don't think it's just him, the game that's been played with as well. I think there's a number of players that are probably ready to revolt. My last point is, I think we just need to get through to the summer. We need new management, top to bottom.
Yeah.
Moyes needs to go. I don't care anymore. I'm not even constructive about it. He just needs to go. He can win us Europa League conference. He needs to go. I would rather keep the likes of Scamacca, Paqueta, Aged, those types of players over the manager at this point, because we are functionally dysfunctional. That is West Ham right now.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, I would love to keep the likes of Paqueta and Scamacca, but at the rate it's going, I can't see it this summer. But we'll see what happens in the next couple of months. Hopefully Scamacca can get back into the team, and after the international break, we'll see him in action a bit more. But let us know what you guys thought of the weekend and Scamacca's treatment down below in the comments. Do you think Moyes was right to do what he did? Or do you think it was perhaps unjustified getting him ready and not bringing him on? But that's where we're going to leave it today. Make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And Mike, one thing left to say.
Come on, you Irons.